With David Leitch's next action flick Bullet Train pulling into theaters this summer, and Keanu Reeves gearing up for another outing as the titular assassin John Wick Chapter 4, we thought now would be a great time to revisit two of the greatest action films in recent memory, John Wick.
Hey son, I might help.
And Nobody.
Don't call 911.
Keanu Reeves had already cemented himself as an action icon with hits like Speed, Point Break, and The Matrix before tackling the role of deadly assassin John Wick. Released in 2014, the film was a sleeper hit and launched its own action franchise with two sequels, John Wick Chapter 2 and Parabellum, along with more on the way. After penning the first three John Wick entries, screenwriter Derek Kolstad went on to draft the script for the Bob Odenkirk vehicle, Nobody, featuring another retired contract killer returning to his underworld roots. While that film didn't rake in as much money as John Wick, it still performed very well for a film released at the height of the pandemic, placing #1 at the box office in its opening weekend. Both films share the same writer-producer, a Russian villain, similar themes and plot beats, as well as thoughtful world building, but Nobody is much more than merely a John Wick clone. Even though John Wick has successfully ignited its own franchise, we'll only be looking at the first film of the series to keep things fair. Be warned though, you should never underestimate a Nobody.
The fucking Nobody?
That fucking Nobody is John Wick.
So suit up and give us that
Kitty cat bracelet.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfucker!
as we figure out which of these hired guns is the ultimate assassin. Face Off!
Disclaimer. No actual science was used to determine the outcome of Face Off. Your results may vary. Please do not consume Face Off if you are allergic to conjecture, opinion, or general nonsense.
Round 1, setup. Even if you haven't seen John Wick, you're likely at least familiar with the film's premise. A gang of intruders break into the titular character's home and beat him up and kill his dog. Little do they know that their victim is a former hitman grieving the loss of his wife who gifted him that pup to help him cope. With this single act of violence, John Wick is thrust back into his old life and is gunning for revenge on the ones who wronged him. As simple and as effective as this enticing incident is, it does rely on John Wick being uncharacteristically caught off guard by these thugs. However, the audience can completely empathize with John Wick over this sudden loss. Lesson learned: never mess with a man's dog. Nobody has seemingly ordinary Hutch Mansell, who is living in a rut with his boring job and monotonous marriage. One night, an armed couple break into his house looking for cash and other valuables. At least in this instance, Hutch does have the upper hand, but chooses not to engage.
What the fuck, Dad?
It's only when his family and friends start to belittle him for not taking action does his post-traumatic shame disorder kick in. It's then revealed that Hutch is actually a former government assassin for the three-letter agencies. He uses his old contacts and resources to track down the burglars, discovering that they were acting out of desperation to take care of their sick baby. Even though Hutch is a man with a conscience, he's given an opportunity to release his pent-up frustration by beating up what else? Russian thugs on a public bus.
I'm gonna fuck you up.
Somewhat similar to John Wick's premise, Nobody's first act stands on its own, especially since the concept came to Odenkirk, who dealt with a home invasion himself by trapping the trespassers in his basement. He was frustrated with how the authorities dealt with the situation and thought about how he would take matters into his own hands if he was a badass. Due to the former setup relying on John Wick getting caught off guard and Nobody's slightly more relatable take, in a shocking upset, we have to give this round 2. Verdict: Nobody. Round 2. Main man, John Wick is anchored by Keanu Reeves' dedicated performance as a man on a mission for vengeance. Much like Wick's tactical suit, the part feels tailor-made for him. His storied cinematic career as an action hero really laid the foundation for the audience to buy into Wick's backstory. Like the character himself, Reeves totally commits to the role, spending months training for the stunt work in order to perform the majority of the action. In fact, Keanu Reeves did 90% of his own stunts, even learning and memorizing the nightclub fight sequence on the very day that the scene was shot.
I'm sorry to say that no one's that good.
No, I thought not.
What's even crazier is that, according to the commentary, Keanu had the flu and was running 104-degree fever. Clearly, Keanu is a seasoned badass, both on and off the screen. When news broke that Bob Odenkirk was set to star in an action film, many people were skeptical whether he could pull it off. Thankfully, Odenkirk really surprised people with his bona fide action chops. When he wasn't filming Better Call Saul, Bob spent his free time training for the role over a course of 2 years so he could perform almost all his own stunts. The fight scenes deliberately used long takes to show that it is indeed Bob himself doing the moves and not a double. While the filmmakers could have easily used a stunt double for the intense action, Bob opted to do it himself. Who would have thought that Saul Goodman would have had it in him?
That was a good takedown.
However, part of the idea behind Nobody is that anyone could be Hutch Mansell. Not to knock Bob Odenkirk's talents, but anybody could be nobody. Only Keanu Reeves could pull off John Wick. Verdict? John Wick.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Round 3. Action. John Wick is not a guy you want to set off. He's trained in Kung Fu,
I know Kung Fu.
Gun Fu, and even Car Fu.
I once saw him kill 3 men in a bar with a pencil.
The man can hold his own against the deadliest of foes or even a modest army of hired guns. While he may get caught with his pants down at the very beginning, John never makes this mistake again. When Vigo sends a squad of hitmen to Wick's house, he dispatches all of them with extreme prejudice. Then there's the jaw-dropping sequence at the Red Circle while Wick kills a horde of guards like it's no big deal. Furthermore, there's a quick scuffle between Perkins and John in his hotel room, an attack on the church in Little Russia, as well as the thrilling ambush outside. From there, John is taken prisoner but manages to get the upper hand, free himself, and obtain the location of Yosef. This leads to the scene where John travels to Yosef's safe house to kill his bodyguards, blow up their vehicles, and plant a bullet in the little prick's head. The climax has John fighting Vigo's remaining henchmen by car before facing Vigo himself on the rainy dock. It's also refreshing to have smoother cinematography for action cinema as opposed to the shaky cam style that the Bourne series ushered in. Hutch Mansell is no slouch in the action department. There's a stunning sequence set entirely on a bus which really sets the bar high. Early on, I can still vividly recall Hutch kicking a knife through a guy's leg and poking a hole through another dude's neck to allow him to breathe. Brutal. That first fight is very important for Hutch's character development since we see that he's lashing out in anger and a bit rusty, so it feels sloppy and rough around the edges. Later on, like John Wick, the Russians find Hutch at home, but he's even more prepared for this assault. After being taken hostage himself, he escapes by breaking his thumb and spraying a fire extinguisher to blind the driver. By the time we get to the third act's car chase and warehouse showdown, Hutch has finally got his groove back. Eventually, the film becomes a family affair with his father and brother getting in on the action too. Both films certainly have their fair share of visceral, violent whirlwinds, but with the amount of action set pieces within John Wick's tight 101-minute running time, this round goes to verdict, John Wick.
What's done is done. After all, we can both rebuild, right?
Right. Wait. Rebuild?
Round 4, allies. Sure, you make lots of enemies while working as an assassin, but you're also bound to make a friend or two along the way. Wick's allies include his old pal Marcus, played by an ultra-cool Willem Dafoe. It's clear that they have a history, with Marcus acting as something akin to a mentor or father figure, even though he seemingly agrees to kill him for Vigo. Marcus proves to be a loyal friend and helps John out of a jam or two with his trusty sniper rifle. There's also Winston, the enigmatic owner of the Continental Continental Hotel played with gravitas by Ian McShane, who provides John with a valuable tip here and there. And of course, John Leguizamo as Aurelio, the owner of a high-end chop shop. Well, he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time, Aurelio proves. He's a good friend by punching Yusuf in the face after he steals John's car, and even lends him a sweet ride as a gesture of goodwill. On the other hand, Hutch's allies are more or less his family. Hutch's father, David, played by the legendary Christopher Lloyd, who's clearly having a blast, is a retired FBI agent living in a retirement home. Don't write him off just yet. David may be old, but he still knows how to take care of himself. And then there's Hutch's brother, Harry, played by RZA of Wu-Tang Clan fame. My man Harry ain't nothing to fuck with. Of course, he's got his wife, Becca, played by Connie Nielsen, who is aware of his hardened past and even stitches him up after getting into a scrape. Sadly, she doesn't get much more to do here, but here's hoping she'll get in on the action in the yet-to-be official sequel. While we'd be lucky to have any of these characters on our side, we gotta give this round to Wick's allies, who prove their worth on more than one occasion. Verdict: John Wick.
Your membership to the Continental has been by thine own hand revoked.
Round 5. Villains. John Wick squares off with the head of the Tarasov family, Vigo, played by a menacing yet quirky Michael Nyqvist. Vigo puts a bounty out on John Wick in order to prevent the former killer from executing his son for slaughtering his dog and stealing his car. Vigo's son Yusuf is played by Alfie Allen as an arrogant asshole you can't wait to see get his comeuppance. There's also the duplicitous Miss Perkins, played by Adrian Palicki, who is willing to break the rules of the Continental so she can collect a huge payday. John additionally encounters a mini-boss in the form of Kirill. Throughout the film, Kirill actually gets the best of John twice, throwing him from the top level of the nightclub and smashing a car to him outside the church, before John turns the tables on him.
Perkins,
I thought I let myself in.
I noticed.
Nobody's main baddie is in the form of Yulian Kuznetsov, a Russian mob boss played by Alexei Serebryakov. His responsibility is to guard the Obshek, basically a common treasury for the mob. He's not without his own unique quirks too, such as his love of performing songs at his club. Don't mistake his good pipes for weakness though, because this dude does not fuck around. Prone to violent outbursts, Yulian is certainly a formidable foe for Hutch, especially since he's able to deduce his identity extremely fast and has no problem ordering a hit on him. While both villains have legions of mercenaries at their disposal to do their dirty work, Vigo is the only one to do hand-to-hand combat with his counterpart and puts up a decent fight to boot. Verdict: John Wick.
Good seeing you, John. Yeah. You see me.
Round 6. World building. On the surface, it seems like John Wick is a rather straightforward tale of revenge, but the film expertly lies out the little breadcrumbs to fill in the mysterious world that these characters inhabit. The gold coins that the assassins use as currency in the underworld, the cleanup crew that disposes of the bodies and evidence, Winston and the New York Continental Hotel's unique operating rules, Jimmy the cop being aware of Wick's profession and turning a blind eye, and more.
You, working again?
No, just sorting some stuff out.
Each passing scene expands and enhances the story by filling out the world of shady assassins. Nobody's world building might not be as complex as John Wick's universe, but it doesn't make it any less intriguing. The tattoo on Hutch's wrist, a 7 of spades and a 2 of diamonds. Statistically, the worst possible starting hand you can be dealt in poker. Here, the context implies that the tat is some form of military ID, likely from some elite unit with a fearsome reputation. Basically, signaling that this badass can win even with the shittiest of hands. Hutch reveals that he's a former
Auditor for those 3-letter agencies. Auditor as in the last guy in the organization wants to see at their door.
His house has a basement that doubles as a panic room. Scratch that, triples as a crematorium.
Because I drove by one earlier today, and one of the doubles, the double of the Barracuda. Actually, I have triples of the Barracuda. I have triples, right? If I don't have triples, then the other stuff's not true.
He has triples of the Barracuda.
See, the Barracuda is the one I have triples of. Oh, no, actually, I also have triples of the Roadrunner, too. But just those 2. And your dad and I are the same age, and I'm rich, and I have triples of the Barracuda and the Roadrunner.
This allows him to burn down the place with all the dead mercenaries inside to destroy any evidence. Hutch also visits with the barber, his former government handler, to gain intel on the Russian crime lord Yulian. In a mid-credit scene, we also see Hutch's brother and father driving an RV filled with guns to some unknown location, which we can only hope is their own Hobbs and Shaw style spin-off.
I'm a freelance architect, avid mountain climber, and a part-time ski instructor.
Thank you.
And you? You're Michael Oxmore.
Mike Oxmore.
I go by Michael.
To top it off, there have been rumors that these films take place in the same universe, but that's yet to be confirmed. So for now, we gotta chalk this one up as a draw.
I came for the show.
Cute.
Round 7, humor. Even though the film rarely lets up on the gas between its unrelenting bouts of violence, John Wick still has room for a good gag.
Yeah. I kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah.
Part of the film's humor deals with the characters' deadpan reactions. An early instance is when Vigo learns about why Aurelio punched his son.
Yeah, well, because he stole John Wick's car, sir, and, killed his dog.
Another example is John having a brief interaction with Jimmy the cop after going berserk on all the hitmen who descended upon his home.
Noise complaint.
Noise complaint.
Or John Wick conversing with the Continental's resident doctor.
Do you need anything for the pain?
No, I've got that covered.
Nobody has a much lighter tone than John Wick. There's Hutch apologizing to the bus driver after opening a can of whoop-ass.
Sorry about the mess.
Then there's Yulian's introduction by way of a lively karaoke number. Later, Christopher Lloyd gets the best of two goons when they invade his quiet retirement home. There's also a great recurring bit where Hutch tries to share his past with an injured antagonist before the guy kicks the bucket halfway through his speech. And of course,
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfuckers!
while neither film pulls any punches in the joke department, nobody has more moments of levity compared to Mr. Wick's. Verdict, nobody.
Yes.
I apologize for calling you at this hour, but we have received a number of grievances from your floor concerning the noise.
Round 8, directors. John Wick was brought to life with expert precision by its directors. That's right, the film was directed by both Chad Stahelski and David Leitch. However, due to complicated rules for credits, the Directors Guild of America awarded sole directorial credit to Stahelski, with Leitch listed as producer instead. It was the duo's featured debut, but Chad Stahelski had previously worked with Reeves on The Matrix as his stunt double. Thanks to the neon-soaked cinematography along with the stylized action choreography, the filmmakers gave John Wick its own signature visual look. Nobody was helmed to perfection by Ilya Naishuller, who had previously directed first-person perspective hardcore Henry, the concept for which came from Naishuller's previous music videos for his band Biting Elbows. More grounded than John Wick's neo-noir cityscape, the production really tried to make something based in reality by casting Odenkirk to demonstrate that anyone could become this badass motherfucker. The direction ensures that this film isn't just a carbon copy of John Wick, but rather a distinct story with a different hero that stands on its own merits. However, in this case, two heads are better than one, so with that, we have to give this round and this face-off to the one and the only Baba Yaga, John Wick.
You out? Dad, you out? Yeah.
Hopefully nobody is given the green light for a sequel or two, and when that happens, you can be damn sure that these two action heroes will be back for a rematch. Until then, don't let us have the final word. Tell us in the comments which assassin is your pick, John Wick or nobody. And as always, thanks for watching.
I'll leave you be then. Good night, John.
Good night, Jimmy.